So the coaching carousel has just gone absolutely bonkers this year. We got Mike Gundy out, Billy Napier out, James Franklin out. The list goes on and on and on. And of course, the most recent one this week was Justin Wilcox. Now, there's multiple Duck connections here, and it's not just that Justin Wilcox was a former Oregon football player straight out of Junction City. JC, you know me. Lived there for a couple years. So Justin Wilcox, just Junction City native, former Oregon Duck player, became the Cal head coach, which makes my countdown to kickoff video, dated now, because I ended that video with him being the current coach at Cal. He's out. He's out as head coach. I don't know. I don't want to say for certainty that it was premature, because I feel like he's had a good run of having the ability to turn Cal around, and it hasn't quite gone there. Although with JKS being there now, with how he's playing as a freshman, I understand why he left, decommitted from Oregon, because he wanted to play it right away. Usually you think with freshmen like that you're like, okay, it's like a Dante Moore thing where you go in thinking you want to play right away, and then you learn your lesson, and then you realize I shouldn't be playing right away, and I need to learn and then do better after. JKS looks pretty good this year. Even when they got beat 34-0 by San Diego State, it wasn't necessarily because of him. He looked all right in that game even then. So I don't know. It kind of looked like, okay, Cal has the foundation built to have that upward trajectory. But at the same time, with the way Mendoza is playing at Indiana right now, you think, okay, that's probably a flaw in the coaching, that Mendoza couldn't do that at Cal. So it's weird. It's kind of a weird situation where it's like, okay, are you going to find anyone better than Wilcox right now at Cal? And I understand Wilcox hasn't really turned the program around like you were kind of expecting, especially with a guy like him who's defensive minded, because he was a defensive player and stuff. And before Lanning came around, Oregon maybe thought about him. Thank God we didn't pick him up. And now people are thinking defensive coordinator type of stuff. It's hard, but so he's out. And the weird wrinkle in this, one, is that with all the coaching carousel stuff going on, all the firings and hirings and things like that going on, Will Stein, the offensive coordinator for Oregon, is still being looked at, obviously, to take up head coaching jobs and sort of having the same trajectory as Kenny Dillingham. Kenny Dillingham went to ASU, his alma mater, and so that was sort of understandable that he went there. But the biggest person right now, a person of interest for the Cal job, is Oregon defensive coordinator Tosh Lupoi. Again, they want a defensive-minded guy, a la Wilcox, but maybe a guy that's been a little bit more proven, like Tosh Lupoi. And the thing with Tosh Lupoi is that, sorry, I'm making noises. He grew up in Walnut Creek, California. So Bay Area. In the general vicinity of the Bay Area. A little bit outside of Oakland and San Francisco and stuff. Walnut Creek. I believe he played at Cal. Let me look that up. Says in 2008, Lupoy was hired as defensive line coach at his alma mater, Cal. So yeah, he played. I don't know if he played though. He just went to Cal. I don't know. It doesn't give him. Did he? Let me look it up. Sorry. Did Tosh Lupoy play football at Cal? Yes, Tosh Lupoy. Okay, that's what I thought. From 2000 to 2005. So that was kind of the peakish era. Aaron Rodgers. So Tosh Lupoy was a defensive lineman for Cal from 2000 to 2005. A few years later, he was the defensive line coach at Cal. That was during the era when all the Duck fans were mad at Cal for faking injuries to slow down Oregon's offense. Tosh Lupoy was the guy. He was the coordinator and the coach when that was happening. It was Tosh Lupoy. The name was a derogatory term for Oregon fans about 20 years ago. And that's just hilarious how things kind of come full circle that he ended up at Oregon. So the temptation, though, is that Lupoy is proven enough, obviously, in the Cal program already even, to become head coach. And so he might be leaving. Who knows? And Lanning already came out and said, he wouldn't blame him, or his sort of biggest accomplishment as a head coach would be sort of building that coaching tree, which he is correct. He is justified in saying that. Nick Saban has a wide branch of leaves of his coaching tree. Lane Kiffin, Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, all these guys. So your biggest accomplishment as a coach is not only on the program level, but who you build up to be the coach of the next team. Kirk Cinetti, I think, is another one in the Saban tree. Can't forget him. So obviously Lanning doesn't really have any qualms about it. And, maybe it pays off. I mean, like I said earlier this year, Tosh's defensive coordinator seat was getting a little warm. Not hot, but it was warm this year at Oregon, because the fatal flaws that ended Oregon's season had a lot to do with the defense and the coordination of such. But this year, he's sort of proven himself in terms of, look, he's got the roster finally that he needs, and the defense is playing pretty damn well, run and pass. The vision is coming together for Tosh. And in previous years, arguably so, the vision wasn't quite there. There was flashes and moments of it, but it wasn't quite there yet, and that's fair. This year, if he stays at Oregon, his seat has stayed his temperature of his seat has gone down, in my opinion. Granted, we'll see in the playoffs if Oregon goes to the playoffs, whether he's the weak spot in that again. So there's a lot to be said about that. But in other sort of Duck-related news, Chip Kelly was fired as the offensive coordinator. And the way that intertwines, obviously, is not because of the Duck relation, obviously. But then there is the potential of Will Stein leaving already. Forgetting Tosh Lupoy, but Will Stein in particular. So now, obviously, you have Oregon Duck fans. I can't even say scorn lover, because at this point, he didn't do anything necessarily to scorn us, or it's way past time to be scorned. We have quantitatively, by the numbers metric, moved on from Chip Kelly. And they're still saying, we'd like to see him back as an offensive coordinator. Dang, Texas just got an interception, up 27-17 with 2 minutes left in the game. That's a game winner pick right there if I've ever seen one. Texas is going to pull this out. Going to upset Texas A&M. This is a battle that I have been absolutely dealing with on two sides. I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to use the term washed. I'm just going to say Chip Kelly should never, ever, ever step foot in Eugene to coach Oregon football ever again. And this isn't a scorn lover thing. This isn't animosity towards him. I appreciate everything he's done for the program when he was here. But we don't need him no more. We just don't. That is the best. If you are one of those fans that want revenge on him, the best revenge is not needing him anymore. And we don't need him. He needs to stay away from campus. We don't need him no more. And that's a good thing. That is a great thing. Let's lay out all the reasons. But this is the two-sided front here is you have Oregon fans, and these are guys that I battle with that shit talk me on the internet because they're stupid. And I do this all day against these same guys, the same guys that want Chip Kelly back. And then you got the other side of the people that basically hate Oregon, and they're using the same arguments as the guys that want Chip Kelly back. So who's more of a fan in your opinion? Me or those guys? That's the question. But let's start. The first reason we don't, why Chip Kelly should never come back to Oregon. One, we don't need him. Why don't we need him? I'm going to start with recruiting. We have Dan Lanning. And we'll say Tosh Lupoy on top of that as well because he's an excellent recruiter. Leek Terry, Rashad Samples, Will Stein. We have a squad of coaches that recruit like this program has never seen before. Ever. Even Rich Brooks, who rebuilt this program brick by brick over the course of 20 years, never had recruiting like we do now with Dan Lanning and crew. Chip Kelly hated recruiting. He did everything possible that he could to not have to recruit, which is the exact opposite of what you need to do in college football. That's why he wanted to go to the NFL so bad, because he didn't want to have to recruit. And Dan Lanning said it perfectly. Recruiting is the lifeblood of a college football team. Literally. You can't build your roster from a draft. You literally have to go and recruit these guys out of high school. Couldn't even get away with it in the transfer portal. And even then, Chip Kelly probably wouldn't do the job in the transfer portal. Mark Helfrich was the reason why Oregon got Mariota. He's the one who got him to commit and step foot in Eugene. The reason why Oregon had recruiting sanctions when Helfrich became the head coach was because of Chip Kelly. And I still firmly believe that was due to laziness. He just didn't want to recruit. So he wanted someone else to do it for him. And he was dumb enough to break rules. That is not a culture fit in Oregon now. You think Dan Lanning would let that shit slide? No. Hell no. Not a chance. The next reason is that the game has evolved from Chip Kelly. And again, I don't want to use the word washed, but we'll say this. When Chip Kelly became offensive coordinator at Oregon, there was plenty of things that were new and sort of translations of the old made into the new with the offensive scheme and everything that no one had really been able to adjust to yet. And I know he was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State last year. But again, Ohio State had basically an NFL roster in college. Another big run. Man, Texas is actually going to run away with this one. The offense doing anything at Ohio State last year had more to do with the roster than with Chip Kelly. He doesn't realize that because he doesn't like building rosters. It certainly helps when you have a roster. The next reason is sort of a mixture sort of the two here. And this is more directed at the fans. Taking a knee, get it over with. And this is the double-sided thing that I get. Because here's the thing. Oregon haters, and especially the SEC fan dumb fucks. These inbred, ignorant people that have no idea that football exists west of the Rockies and north of the Mason-Dixon line. They still think that Oregon football is the Chip Kelly identity. The blur offense, the fast offense that goes around everybody, that's undersized, underutilized, or undersized, underathletic, but overutilized to outperform their talents and their ceiling. And then when they hit a real good old football in the trenches SEC team, that they lose. And in 2008, 2009, when Chip Kelly was the head coach, that was true. Well, guess what? We got an SEC dude in our corner right now with Dan Lanning. The team identity and a brand is way different than it was 15, 20 years ago. You think Chip Kelly fits into that culture now? These fans, these Oregon fans that are still saying, oh, well, this is a great opportunity for Chip to come back. Why? What does he add to the Oregon program right now? Not a damn thing. He doesn't add nothing to it. And you sound just like these SEC fans that still use talking points from 2008 today. You sound just like the SEC fans calling Oregon not physical enough, not big enough, not SEC football, not soft, all exposed, fraud, all these dumb, like, retard trigger words. That have no substantive, like, substance, real arguments behind them. You sound just like those guys, but somehow you've managed to twist that into being pro-Oregon. And these are the Oregon fans I get into arguments with all the time. All the time. Because they have not moved on. I don't like using the current year argument. But we have gone through 3 to 4 coaches since Chip Kelly. We have Mark Helfrich, who is the same thing. You got Willie Taggart, Mario Cristobal, and Dan Lanning. 4 coaches since Chip Kelly. You still think the team is the same as it was with Chip. And here's the thing. The SEC dumbfucks were actually right to some capacity. So Chip was able to take us to new heights in terms of finally getting over the BCS bias and get us to a national championship game. But we couldn't get over the hump. And there was a reason why we couldn't get over the hump. Recruiting and just size and speed. Because Chip didn't recruit well, that bit us in the butt. Even with Helfrich. Because he was basically, Helfrich was just trying to do an impersonation of Chip. Because that worked for Oregon in the past 3 to 4 years before he became head coach. Well, there's a ceiling to that, and we hit the ceiling. And a guy like Helfrich wasn't going to get us past that ceiling. And the next reason, too, is Chip Kelly sort of started this new sort of era of the aloof, super genius, stoic, never show anything chess master coach that the NFL even glommed onto in the past 10 to 15 years, as well as college. Well, guess what? Passion gets somewhere. Everyone gets super hyped on the Ducks versus them, and all of Lanning's motivational speeches, his team meetings with movie clips, his locker room talks, getting the guys fired up to play. Where do you think Chip fits into that culture? What kind of motivating factor is Chip? How does he help? Okay? Players respond to that. They don't respond to, well, see, according to the analytics, we just didn't decide to go for it on fourth in that run, but we're going to get better on certain things, and I'm going to get the old chalkboard out and run it through. Hey, guys, so on this kind of thing, you gotta do this and then go here and then blah blah blah, and maybe next time just do this and this. These players know that. How many times have they been on the board with the coach? They know the X's and O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. And you got to get the Jimmies and the Joes locked in and fired up and ready to go. Chip doesn't do that. We're starting to see the cracks in the foundation of the stoic chess master coach. You got to have your team on your side. You got to have your team ready to go to war for you. The X's and the O's are how they go to war. But if you don't get them wanting to go to war for you, what's the point? So please, it's not even the dynamic of the scorned lover that can't move on. Well, I should say not can't move on. Because these fans, these Oregon fans, they want Luke Moga run fast. They want flashy highlights and offensive scores and basketball scores on a football field. How many times do we have to learn that doesn't win football games, let alone doesn't win championships? You need to have a football team, not a basketball team and shoulder pads. And you want a coach that understands that and makes that happen. Dan Lanning's the guy. Chip Kelly, not the guy. We've moved on from him. We should move on from him. Some of you need to get out of the Chip Kelly era, okay? And this is why I have issues with all these fans. They shit talk me to no end. But guess what? I've been right. I've been right every time. Yes, do I appreciate that Chip Kelly took our program to heights that we haven't seen? Yes. We finally got to a national championship game. But it wasn't because of his coaching or his recruiting or anything else. If anything, Bellatti's probably more responsible for that. It was a couple years after Bellotti. Nothing changed. Chip Kelly didn't recruit any differently than Bellotti did. He just changed the offensive scheme. Move on, Oregon fans. Guess what? We have an SEC team now. We're not going to put up 50 points every game. And that's a good thing. Because guess what happens when we don't put up 50 points back in the day? We always lost. Now we have defenses that hold people to under 20 points a game. That means more. Not to use the stupid SEC catchphrase. But you got SEC and guys like Ohio State and Michigan. They're not offensive teams, really, but they're national championship winning teams. That's what we want. I am tired of people talking about Chip Kelly in Oregon. We are done with him. You know what's best? We don't need him. Because arguably he is washed. We don't need him. We are beyond him. We have raised the ceiling from him. That is a good thing. Why would we backslide? Clearly at this point, he's more of a liability than he is a net positive. I don't know if I properly illustrated my point, but I've said everything I could on that regard.